What sort of boon is this in such a place? Well, in the name of Hades, Olympus, are you there?
Olympus cannot hear you, Spawn of Hades, but I can. And I have for you a proposition. Assist with a quandary of mine, and benefit. Your response?
Almighty Chaos. I'm honored to make your acquaintance. What sort of quandary would concern the origin of all existence? And how do I fit in?
Time shall tell. But at present I have inferred that your response, in essence, was affirmative. Thus may our newly formed arrangement prove most interesting. Accept my mark and go, and later I shall open the abyss for you again. When I created life, I had my doubts. Would it invite more problems than it solved? I would be curious to see. Thus my experiment continues to unfold, its outcome yet uncertain.
Almighty Chaos, with your experiment so vast in scope, what can one individual achieve? The quandary you mentioned when first we met, what would you have me do?
Spawn of Hades, I ought to clarify I do not care for idle talk. Ask me no questions. Respond only when prompted, or when necessary in the absolute. But above all, do as you will. I once created a similar arrangement with a different Spawn of Hades. He was an interesting subject. The interval since last we met grows ever longer now. Do you know his status? Respond.
You mean my brother Zagreus? Kronos took him, along with my parents and their closest associates. They're in the lowest reaches of the underworld, where I am headed now.
I see. Time appears to be the source of many problems recently. As for your brother, I found him to be quite amusing. How interesting that offspring can be so dissimilar.
If you'll permit me, Almighty Chaos, I wish you to have this gift of nectar, in accordance with my family's custom among relatives and friends. None of this would have been possible if not for you.
I shall grant you this wish and the freedom to bestow upon me further gifts as you see fit, for I have familiarity with this custom of yours, and am prepared to reciprocate.
Whatever this is, it's remarkable, truly. Salutations.
And to you. You did not venture far to find me, Spawn of Hades, for I am everywhere, particularly where the darkness coalesces into seeming nothingness. Perhaps we shall see each other again when you are closer to your goal. When you return to Shadow, I briefly sense your presence in the infinite abyss. So I have seen what the servant of the three fates found you in that hidden place. He relayed to you a secret, did he not? Respond.
You mean Moros? His secret was about the surface, about how I can survive up there. I know this goes against the fates' designs, but Olympus needs me.
I see. As you may know, I am uninterested in the fates having undue influence. Perhaps you may find a catalyst here for this incantation, whether they like it or not.
This can grow into exactly what I need.
As you commence your evening's pursuit, you may be best prepared to receive my mark and overcome its undesirable effects. Subsequently, you shall have more opportunity to test the limits of the possibilities that it creates. To make the most of our arrangement, I bid you activate a certain artifact where you reside. Within the pitch-black facets of this standing stone are possibilities to be explored. I shall reveal how to see them all, but first...
Abyssal insight, the pitch-black stone. I feel unstoppable.
Our trial thus begins, O Spawn of Hades. Your usage of the pitch-black standing stone enables me to temporarily emerge from my abyss, and I thank you for that. I can observe more clearly both the outcome of your trial and all else. The readings of the fates are said to bind both mortals and immortals alike. the course and outcome of all lives, all preordained. Thus the sense of choice is merely an illusion. Do you believe this, Spawn of Hades? Respond.
I think the fates determine much about our lives. When and where we are born, for instance, and to whom. But I don't think they set every detail. And I know they're not weaving it all right now, because Kronos has them.
I see. For the most part, I concur with your assessment. I am the reason Kronos has them now. He asked me where to find them, and I decided to tell him. To verify such choices could be made without their influence. Now do you understand my quandary? Respond.
Oh no. Almighty Chaos, you were deceived. Kronos wished to find the fates for his own gain. They were one of the only forces in this world powerful enough to stop him.
Yet they are not so powerful as they appeared. Nevertheless, I think you are correct. Kronos indicated his intentions were benign. I am unfamiliar with deceit, and was misled. I remain quite displeased about this still. Once there was darkness all throughout the underworld, but now, Kronos works to reshape the realm to suit his preferences. However, there shall always be darkness here in this space, and I have made it visible to you.
Pure darkness. I'm grateful for this gift.
You have completed a number of the trials I have put before you, Spawn of Hades. I would offer you my gratitude, except I thought my stardust would be of more use. Recently, I found myself unable to detect you much at all, and deduced that you must have completed your forbidden incantation. Thus, the surface is laid bare to you. Perhaps I shall ask you to describe it to me sometime. In retrospect, I ought not have permitted Kronos to speak with me, but he was persuasive. I still do not fully understand how you communicate. What you say is not always what you mean, and your intentions may be carefully veiled, so I pay closer notice now. Your ability to reach beyond the boundaries that the fates placed upon you proved inspiring to me. After some consideration, I discovered how to call upon you even from the surface of this world. I find it rather interesting there. I understand the being you call Typhon presents a significant problem for the Olympians, and now also for you. I had not necessarily expected he and Kronos would join forces. Perhaps this is why I could not detect Typhon's reawakening. I anticipated speaking to you thus as you explore the possibilities within the Standing Stone. Perhaps you see them as a series of important missions to complete, but they are merely part of our experiment. Do as you will. You need not have participated in the trials I devised, or provided quite as many interesting outcomes to observe, but you decided to of your own will nevertheless. Our acquaintance, therefore, was not a mistake. I cannot know what it is like to meet one's creator, but you may, and perhaps have. Your father is no longer in his residence. I sense much has changed. Yet he is not far from there. Perhaps I shall assist you in locating him. There was a certain rumbling I felt within the depths. You reached your destination, did you not? Confronted Kronos and prevailed. And yet his influence remains. But perhaps the Titan shall relinquish control with further persuasion. There was a recent moment when time briefly ceased to be, and I alone could tell. I believe this coincided with your confrontation with Kronos. Now you return to me, attempting to repeat the same outcome. Interesting. I believe that I am an impartial being, Spawn of Hades. However, even I can be provoked, as Kronos soon shall come to realize. Our experiment concerns his fate. If he believes that he can change his fate, then so may we. The fate's designs for us perhaps are intertwined, for we each seek our close kin. I have lost contact with my Spawn and daughter Nyx, who resided in your father's house. Her influence remains, yet I feel her absence. goddess Nyx is captive in your father's house, along with other members of her family and yours, and I would like for that to change. Perhaps he shall release them if you use sufficient violence. If Kronos holds the goddess Nyx as captive in your father's house, along with other members of her family and yours, then I would like for that to change. Perhaps he shall release them if you use sufficient violence. I was unable to detect you for some time, but then the earth itself shuddered, as though an object of very substantial size fell from considerable height. That must have been the being you call Typhon. Did you cause him to fall? Do not respond. I find it interesting that the being you call Typhon has prioritized destruction above all. Perhaps I created more than I ought to have, and now this counteracting force has emerged, for creation self-corrects. I am familiar with what you recently achieved despite Typhon's comparatively different size and strength. How interesting that the smallest beings often prove to be superior. Is my conception of strength incorrect? Perhaps I should not actively participate within the trials of my own design, or I unduly influence the outcome. But I believe this way, it shall be much more interesting for us both. Recently, I ceased to sense the being you call Typhon, which is unusual considering its size. I have been wondering whether this indicates some sort of trouble I am having, or if Typhon merely is no longer there. Which do you think? Respond.
The father of all monsters is destroyed, Almighty Chaos. It was an action I did not take lightly, but the threat against my family was significant and pervasive. He left us no choice.
You could have chosen the destruction of Olympus. Nonetheless, I understand why you did not. The power to unmake creations such as that, I would be curious to learn it for myself, although perhaps I would not use it sparingly. I sensed upheaval in the earth the likes of which I have not felt before, the tenor of it more than the intensity. Something transpired in your father's residence, and Kronos vacated. Why would he take an action such as that? Respond.
Respectfully, Almighty Chaos, Kronos has had quite a change of heart. I found my brother Zagreus, who aided me in bringing it about. Our grandfather conceded in his war against Olympus, and now seeks to make amends.
An interesting change. The absence of detail raises many different questions, which I shall explore. The outcome that you saw has been achieved, yet you seem to pursue it even still. My mark, therefore, remains available to you. I have one further inquiry concerning what transpired in your father's house. Kronos conceded in his war, you said, yet you continued fighting battles as before. Why is that so? Respond.
Almighty Chaos, Kronos can explain it far better than I. But time is like a river seeking to flow freely forth. Yet it can be obstructed and change course disastrously. Essentially, I'm having to retrace some of my steps to prevent that.
As one who dwells in possibility, I understand. Preventing infinite possibilities, however remote they may be, shall take some time. But Kronos must be well aware of that. I shall look forward to the outcome of this new endeavor.
Almighty Chaos, I wish to exercise my freedom here by giving you this. Though I suppose you probably could have made it yourself.
This nectar that you offer me is quite an interesting substance. When I created the fabric of reality, I had a sense of the ways in which it could be used, but I did not necessarily anticipate all possible results, including this one. Your meeting with the Titan Kronos set in motion many series of events, resulting in the liberation of the goddess Nyx. That is an outcome I had sought, so for this daughter of mine, I shall give you gratitude. At present, I remain in conversation with the goddess Nyx. My mark is yours as always, but I bid you leave us afterward. You'll take however long you wish, for we can wait. The trials I devised all began precisely as planned, but from that point, not even I can influence the outcomes entirely. For instance, I did not expect to find you here, Spawn of Hades.
I know such sweetness as this nectar is never to be taken for granted, Almighty Chaos. Please, it's yours. Wondrous creations such as this are only possible because of you.
Such gestures are unnecessary to the arrangement between us. If this is an act of supplication, then simply speak your mind, although I sense no deeper motive presently. I am familiar with what you recently achieved despite Typhon's comparatively different size and strength. How interesting that the smallest beings often prove to be superior. Is my conception of strength incorrect?
You can sense my motive in giving you this. Sometimes we simply feel an impulse to express our admiration. Knowing how important your whims are to you, surely you understand.
Human beings often demand tribute from their worshippers, do they not? Their custom, perhaps, but not mine. I merely ask that you honor our arrangement in perpetuity, though neither shall I reject your offering. You are continuing your journeys to Olympus, though the being you call Typhon is no more, for there are battles to be fought as yet, whilst following the footsteps that you made. Is this what Kronos has discovered about time?
It's heartening to know that the origin of all existence also is the source of such limitless curiosity. Here's to finding great interest even in the simplest of things.
Substances such as this nectar, is it not interesting how they can be made, but not unmade? Everything in essence is itself. What your offering to me is truly unique in its own right, and I thank you for it. You reached your father's residence, then disappeared, becoming undetectable to me. This was the work of Kronos, was it not? A transference into another realm of possibility, which you attempted to shut from the inside out.
Such a strange journey your creations take, Almighty Chaos. This particular bottle, for instance, formed after untold eons, only to find its way back to you, inevitably or not.
I still possess some of the nectar that your brother once gave to me when he was dealing with a certain quandary of his. I think that I shall keep this offering close by to that. You following his path, it seemed to choose your own way. I understand your brother has returned. Perhaps he shall come visit me again as once he did. Whichever mark he does not choose, it may receive from me instead.
Almighty Chaos, please accept the greatest delicacy for which my family is known. I know it's less than nothing in a way, but for us, it's a symbol of the bonds we share.
I am unmoved by this ambrosia that you offer me, and understand this substance is considered valuable and relatively rare. I wonder why you give it to me now, and wish to know. Therefore, respond.
You seem to like unguarded truth, Almighty Chaos, and it's that I am very much in awe of you. Your attention and your aid mean more than I can say. My family gives ambrosia when mere words cannot suffice.
Your insufficient words have been of greater impact than your gift. I shall accept it all, nevertheless. You are using spawn of Hades, more than I originally thought.
Cheers?
I sense a difference now within the underworld's depths, yet the environment itself is much the same. Those who oppose you still oppose you, so that you may now retrace some of your steps. It shall result in different outcomes, certainly. I felt an emptiness that was unusual to me after the goddess Nyx was temporarily taken away. Now that she has returned, that emptiness is mostly gone, especially whilst she is here. You recently entered your father's residence within the underworld's depths, but did not remain there. Did you at least discover what you sought? Do not respond. I am considering all the potential truths. I recognize the artifacts you bear. Their brother weapons of infernal origin drink deep the blood of titans and grow strong, as these fate-forged servants of the underworld that thrive on pure nightmare itself. We have eternity to conduct our experiment. I am unconvinced as to whether the results shall come more quickly than the haste of Hermes benefiting you. That is another facet to explore. I sensed the growing influence of the goddess Nyx, as though my daughter plunged the world into deeper darkness recently. Yet it was not she who did this. I believe it was you. Zeus is upon you. The god of the forge fashions arms and armor fit for war, whilst I created the very things he uses for his trade. No one's work is solely their own, spawn of Hades. The act of creation is not always pristine. The residue of it you know as stardust, which retains some power over consciousness. Consider it an incentive to look upon the standing stone and undertake the trials you see there. I shall hold Kronos to account for what has come to pass, but I am not without blame myself, for I fear that I made present matters worse. You shall see whether any such mistakes can be corrected. The spark of Ixion brought you to me, an ember from the flame forever burning in the underworld. Its light reveals gateways into my abyss, and relieves the common side effects of entering. I recommend continued use of it. The golden son of Zeus has given you his blessing, I see. Apollo was not always so willing to involve himself in your family's struggles. Perhaps the present matter gives him little choice. The Olympians send you their blessings and their messages, having some limited awareness of your circumstances and your whereabouts. So shall it be with me whilst you are here. Please enjoy. Time, of course, did not always exist. Kronos provided a means of measuring the rate at which everything grew and changed or did not. It was quite useful by his very nature. But time can be a source of problems too, I know. The three fates are at last returned, and that is well. Thus your assistance with my quandary is complete. But as to whether you discovered them or they decided to return remains unclear. They create far more questions now than I. I am quite interested in control. Once I alone possessed it until the fates took some of it from me. Then they were gone after the Titan Kronos had returned. Now they are back. Whose choices have been made? Everyone's. No one's. The Olympians often speak of family, but I do not entirely understand what they mean. All beings have a common origin. They are not considered family. Kronos, for example. Is he family or not? I shall not ask you to respond. I understand entering gateways to my domain is not a pleasant sensation, and my mark by its nature yields mixed results. Thus I ask myself why you often venture here. Perhaps you merely wish to look upon me thus. Perhaps I ought to start over again. That is what I think when I observe all that has transpired on the surface of this world. Eventually I expect I shall, though for now I permit my offspring to continue to multiply and interact as they will. Soon you sought to answer my call turned out to lack the fortitude for the descent. Thus I never call on mortals anymore, and seldom anyone, for titans and gods can be duplicitous, I know. I ask that you do not betray my trust. The Titan heroics Prometheus bestowed on mortals sacred fire from Olympus, in an interesting moment I did not entirely expect. How should that fire be used against in so many different hands? Responsibility is partly mine for all that has transpired. I attempted to create this world with a degree of care. I nurtured it, adhered to certain principles as might a mother and father, for I created them too. But this world is no longer young. It persists now by its own whim. I've been exploring the surface of this world, where my influence is comparatively limited. I was amused to consider the possibilities, though I did anticipate you would return. Does there remain a place for beauty and for objects of desire in a world such as this? The goddess Aphrodite must think so, and we work now as allies. I believe it a worthwhile cause. This world was born of a certain desire after all. One of the offspring of the goddess Nyx, the one called Strife. I find it interesting Nyx spawned one such as her, but then we all make mistakes. I acknowledge all that I have wrought can be seen as disorderly as well. You bear the embryo I gave to you. It created creates an impression as though a part of me is with you, even whilst you are absent from this space. You may continue to make use of it, or not. You remain partial to the embryo you have of mine, and I would see you journey farther with it still. Would you consider the specifics of my thoughts? Respond.
If there is something I may do for you, Almighty Chaos, then you need but ask. Where might I take the embryo?
Take it from the beginning of your journey to the end. Do not replace it on the way, but reach your destination with it there. In the underworld or on the surface, we care not. This shall serve only to amuse the embryo and me, and perhaps you. You traveled far there in the embryo I gave to you, which was an interesting matter to observe, and in accordance with the Fate's design. But did they spur your actions, or did you, or I? Further amusement to consider. Thus, thank you. You come from a domain not of the surface nor the underworld, but between. The caretaker of that domain I have seen occasionally for some time, and serves the goddess Nyx. You are reminiscent of her to me. I am aware the goddess of the hunt has lately plied her trade at the boundaries between realms. Artemis was not always so bold, but it is little wonder she was drawn deeper into shadow. You seem to know each other well. I sensed a faint trace of the being you called Typhon once again, then it was gone. Perhaps a current emanating from the river you called Time, and you found a way to put stop to it. One fewer possibility, yet there are many more. You bear the blessing of the king of the Olympians himself. I expected that he would have been too preoccupied to be of direct assistance, although he does have a vested interest in your victory. We are as beings, ever-changing in a way. The particles that form us die and are reborn. From my observance of your relatives and their unusual custom, I have attempted to extrapolate a form more suitable to them, and perhaps you. As part of yours, I have no further wishes to communicate with you this often at this length. I likely shall use fewer words with you henceforth, I think. Welcome, Spawn of Hades, to my most preferred type of experiment. Here, almost nothing is controlled. The possibilities become so numerous that to consider all of them shall take some time. The being that you know as Typhon is the product of an earlier experiment of mine. I sought for my creations to surprise and multiply, but perhaps not to that extent, and I cannot unmake him now. Selene rides across the sky, and her attention she directs towards you. Perhaps she is wondering, what is the moon without night? And I suspect that she is capable in Nyx's absence. What are the essential differences between Titans and gods? I cannot easily distinguish the two. Yet those differences must be significant if they provoked a self-perpetuating war.